have is how did you discover programming and when did you know pursuing a career in software development was for you?
I can I can answer that. So, how I discovered programming. Well, my first introduction to programming was when I was a kid at school, but I didn't have the opportunity to learn too much because I didn't have a computer at the time. I didn't have conditions to afford a computer or classes. So that's how I discovered it. When I was a teenager, I used to study on my own, mostly front end programming languages like CSS and HTML. Um, and I used to build some templates for websites, for blogs, and I really enjoyed it. But when I was in college was when I got more involved with that because even though I was doing communication projects, I used to find ways on how to allow technology and communication go together. So that's when I started to dig in and try to learn by myself. So when did I know pursuing a career in software development was for me? Um, to be honest, it was after I was in Ada because at the beginning I wanted it, but I didn't have enough confidence. So as I was studying, as I was learning, as I was practicing, as I was sharing with all my AD colleagues, that's how I started to feel this career was for me. So when I saw myself being able to build, to do the assignments, to complete tasks, to get my ideas to work in a computer, that's when I knew that pursuing a career in software development was for me.
Yeah, I have a pretty similar answer, I think. As far as discovering programming, it was really early. I had the fortune of having this little toy computer that had like 4 lines of, a monochrome text screen. And anyways, the point was you could program basic programs on it, and it told you how in the manual. And I got really into that, and it never really stopped. Although I did do something different in college, the interest would never really went away as far as a hobbyist interest. And then I would just, really echo Janice and say that you don't have to necessarily know that pursuing the career is completely right for you, because I feel like I felt that maybe partway through Ada too. I think it was when I was just like, this doesn't feel like school. This feels like, I mean, it is school, but it feels like fun. I enjoy doing the work. And I was like, wow, that's incredibly lucky, to find work that I, enjoy doing. This is awesome. And this is totally for me. But yeah, I wasn't 100% sure of that fact until I gave it a go. So
Yeah, I just want to echo all of that and say that probably some of you are on the fence and wondering, like, is this for me? I don't know. This is such a big commitment. And yeah, making that big step and big change and big commitment is really intimidating. Um, I may not know. But you can follow point and support that with, the preparation process. You're going to be practicing coding, you're going to do the build curriculum. All those things are really going to feed into your decision as to whether or not Ada is right for you. Um, and just trusting your gut, getting that little bit of practice and finding out whether or not you enjoy the preparation process, and then just marrying that with, how you feel about the career, gut wise, I think will help you decide if programming.
Yeah, I can add to that. About a year and a half ago, I decided to give it a try, as Allison said. I just found some course on Udemy, and I just sat and listened, and I didn't realize is it for me or not. So my suggestion would be probably to try to find something where you can practice, some project-based courses maybe, because the first one was on Udemy, the second one was Microsoft channel. They have something coding in Python. I was watching, listening, and but I think the real interest came when I tried Ada build curriculum. It was in Ruby, in different programming language than now. Now it's in Python. And then I was also lucky to get into the Stanford program. They made the program 6-week program for those who have never programmed before. It was quite intense, 15, 20 hours per day with lectures, live lectures, classrooms. It was cool. So that gave me the feeling that it's possible. And there is one thing that I hear from a lot of my friends, women, when I talk about Ada and about programming, most of them tell, oh, that's not for me. I know for sure that's not for me. I don't know why people say that, but try it for sure. Start from the Ada build curriculum because it's a wonderful, wonderful source. It will give you the practical experience and the feeling if you like it or not, if you struggle or not, if you go through this smoothly, or you can. That's a wonderful source, and I'm happy Ada added the coding challenge this time. We hadn't it when we applied for cohort 15. So use this as a, if you never tried this, use this as the first source that will give you the feeling of that you can. I'm sure that will give you the feeling that you can.
Awesome, thank you all. The next question that we have is, what did you do to prepare for the application and what was most helpful? Do you have any advice on how to best prepare?
I would say, we've talked about it a lot, is the Ada build curriculum. Definitely, I think that's the best place to start. Not just because it's a good foundational curriculum, but also it kind of gives you a little window into Ada's teaching style and the language that they use around coding. And I think that is the best first step to preparing for the application. I actually did it twice, just to make sure I was thorough, make sure I fully understood the material. And there's a good chance the coding challenge is going to be, largely based on everything you learn in the build curriculum. So that was super helpful. And then again, I'm sure you've all heard this several times, is doing some Udemy courses. I know Natalia mentioned that as well. Tackle some Udemy courses. They're always on sale. Starting with HTML, CSS is a good way to start. And then if you do the build and you're like, whoa, Python's pretty cool. I really like Python. So I did some Python Udemy courses. Not only does it help you for you, when you hit those walls and you're going to understand, you're going to stay up way too late on your computer, struggling to crack something. And just doing all that will really help you understand if this is right for you, if you feel the grit and the tenacity to stay through those challenges. So
I will agree with Allison. Ada Build is a solid foundation curriculum, and I encourage you to follow through the Ada Build and try the test as well. This is what I did when I was preparing for Ada. I followed the classes, I did the exercises, I practiced on my own. And other than, as well as trying to find Udemy and other online courses online. I try to watch videos. I try to practice doing Google search for the questions I had, and when I wanted to find the solution for something that I was not sure, I was practicing, like, how do you search for a solution? What does this solution do? And try to understand, try to read code, do simple tasks. And yeah, definitely like try practicing every day. This is what I did a little bit. You don't need to overwhelm yourself. Just make sure to complete simple tasks and to constantly practice. This is what I did, and this is what I advise.
Yeah, third, A to build, and definitely start early, code early, code often. I wished I had started a little earlier, rather than the application. I had a very compressed week in which I was, learning Ruby and also trying to do the, coding challenge. And yeah, find a way for your learning style that works for you. So some people work, best by reading text. Some people work best with videos. There's a lot of really good videos online. And some people work through just experimentation and jumping in and trying to only look things up when they need to, know how to proceed. So just try to figure out what your learning style is and how you can accommodate it. And as far as like if you get stuck, something that's really useful that we talk about is rubber ducking, which is where it comes from. You could just explain your code problem to a rubber duck and just talking through it. And you can rubber duck to your cat or someone in your family or just anything, a plushie or something. And just talking through your coding problem will really help you most of the time. Before you finish explaining the whole problem, you've realized what the problem is. So that's a great technique. And just don't get too, caught up on any one problem. There's also something good that we like to talk about in NADA called like the 30-minute rule. If you've been having the exact same problem for 30 minutes, it's probably time to do something different, whether it's, rubber ducking, going for a walk, or, sometimes I like to write the problem out on paper and just get away from the screen for a while.
Great advices. I would add that, yeah, definitely expose yourself to programming. The course on Udemy, I would suggest is called Complete Python Bootcamp from Zero to Hero. Yeah, I bought it for $10, I think, not for. Yeah, it's if you complete section 1 to 7, I checked before giving any recommendations. I think that would be enough. You don't have to complete the whole course. Just try. The wonderful thing about this course that it has projects. You can try do something by yourself, and that's the main part, to install everything you need, IDE, to try doing something in terminal, to try play with it. Another thing, I feel like a nerd now, but I prepared. This is a wonderful book, really wonderful one. First 8 chapters will help you to digest the Ada build. It will make your life easier, I think. This book is very easy and understandable. What I would suggest else, the thing I prepared was the narrative essays, because English is not my first language, and because I've never learned in the United States, something like writing narrative essays is a real challenge for me. So if you have never done this before, try to practice. Practice talking about yourself, practice talking about the things you went through in your life, Practice talking about who you are, what you want, what your goals, and not make it just for entertaining purpose. Try to make it that way that the reader could understand what's important for you. The main thing, the main takeaway from my first attempt to get into Ada, that my narrative was not clear. So try to make your essays simple and clear to any person, regardless of his, her, theirs experience or previous knowledge. If you foreigner, if you came here from other country, try to transform your life stories, your professional career, everything. Try to translate it into understandable language. I think that's important. Another thing I would suggest as a preparation part is make a list of your accomplishments. And don't underestimate yourself. Put everything you can recall in this list, everything you have done in your life, that will help you in essay part, in interview part, and I think it will help you further in your life, going to internship interviews and job interviews too. And another thing I think is practice Excel maybe in spreadsheets. I think that would be a good advice too for those who haven't been exposed too much with that. Try practicing with data. Do some simple operations, extracting, filtering, that will help you to go through the first stage of the application process.
And Natalia, before we go on to the last question, some people are asking if you could share the name of the book and the author that you held up.
Okay, I will put it in the chat now, okay?
Thank you. And so this is the last prepared question that we have, but for cohort 15 students, what has been your favorite part about Ada so far? And for cohort 15, since you haven't started yet, or if you don't have an answer for that, what are you looking forward to most before beginning class?
My favorite part of Ada so far, that's a tough question because there's so much to like about Ada, but I can highlight um, one piece of gold that Ada provided me. That is the bond, the community, the amazing people that I encountered. This is something that I don't think I would find anywhere else. So the encouragement and all the TAs, the instructors, the team, this was my favorite part of Ada so far. More than becoming a professional, I became a professional and I have all this amazing support group that's going with me and that I can also be a support part for them. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's, I think, going to be a lot of, 80s first answers is the community. Specifically about the community, I would say I don't really see myself entering a community that's been as intentionally created to be so supportive and so welcoming as this one. Sometimes I almost feel like, Ada has spoiled me for the real world, but hopefully we can make the real world look a little more like Ada. And yeah, I think something else would just be the flexibility that you're given, especially with it being remote. There are, obviously a lot of timed meetings that you have to go to, but for the most part, you're able to set your own schedule and, take charge of your own learning. There's so much support available if you need it, but there's also not going to be, you're not going to feel like there's someone really after you, making sure that you do this and that at this exact time. And I really enjoyed the flexibility because I like to work at odd hours and I like to take a lot of breaks. And I really felt like, my learning was something that, I was empowered to learn the best way that I was able to.
I would also say that even though I haven't started ADA yet, I have really already felt the community. Ahead of starting ADA, we've already got the Slack channel set up, but even before ADA set up the Slack and invited us all to that, prior to that, we've been on Reddit together. There's a Discord channel that we're all part of. Like the feeling of community started, in the application process. And I think a lot of y'all are going to have that same experience. But now that we do have that formal ADA umbrella, I've definitely already felt that strong sense of community. But another thing that I'm really looking forward to, and something that I've enjoyed so far already, is really just being in an affirming environment. I'm sure a lot of you can relate because I know it's this way in a lot of professional fields, but coming from hospitality, hospitality is a very gendered environment. It's very, especially hotels, it's very yes, sir, yes, ma'am. And I feel like that has been a really high pressure environment for me, even though, I've had a long, fruitful career there. It's just been really relieving to come into a community where I feel like I can really be myself and I don't feel like I'm on the defense all the time, or that I have to dress a certain way, or that my hair has to be a certain way, all those things. So it's just been really nice being in a community that's really affirming, while like keeping in mind that, that may not be how it is once I enter my full-time position. There's no guarantee that I'm going to be in an affirming work environment, though that is what I seek. I do think being in this community and environment, at least for the education portion of this big change, is really going to expedite the learning process. And it just kind of removes a lot of the things that we tend to have to stress about in our day-to-day or in our jobs.
Natalia, did you have anything you want to add or? Okay.
Yeah, I I will add that we went through the onboarding process, and the way the onboarding was organized, it's fantastic. It's very welcoming, it's warming, it's very engaging, and there are so many people that are taking care of us, even we haven't started yet. I like that I like the open doors, the teachers assistants, the ADA staff, the ADA team, everyone has open doors. So you literally can knock you can't even knock the door. The door is open. You can just walk through and talk what thoughts you have, what feelings you have, what problems you have, and that's fantastic. That's fantastic.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. So that brings us to the end of our prepared questions. So we can kind of open it up for a general Q&A. Just a couple of reminders. I'd like to ask that you refrain from asking super individualized or personal questions about personal situations, just because that can be addressed through the admissions inbox. But feel free to use the Q&A option. You should see it on your Zoom toolbar to send in your questions, and I'll go ahead and read aloud a question for our panelists to answer. So we do have a couple amassed already, so I'll go ahead and read some out. So there's one question that is asking, did you experience imposter syndrome? And if so, how did you work with that? And I see many nodding heads.
Yeah, we actually had a session about imposter syndrome pretty early on in the ADA curriculum, and it was amazing. And at that session, I learned that literally everybody who had gotten accepted had imposter syndrome. So if you have imposter syndrome, it's totally normal. And I think the way to the way to deal with that, it just helps to know that everybody has it. And I guess my personal tip would be something I did was I reminded myself of my journey. It took a long time, in my life until I was able to apply to Ada. And I just reminded myself of, what I'd already been through and the fact that this, for me, this childhood dream, never died. And, you know, even just submitting the application, I feel like was a huge victory. Even just submitting the application is a huge step. And, after you submit the application, it's out of your control. So really just, if you think you belong here, odds are you do belong here, and go ahead and apply.
I think I experienced imposter syndrome as well. If I'm not mindful, I experience it like many times. It's easy to get inside your head and forget your accomplishments. So it is one thing is to deal with it. Attend to the seminar about imposter syndrome at Ada. Discuss this with your colleagues. Discuss this with the Ada team, and also remind yourself that you are worthy. And be mindful of your accomplishments, be mindful of your origins. This is very important as well. And every time you succeed in trying something or even completing something, remember that this is an affirmation that you're not an imposter. You belong where you are, you belong where you want to be. And yeah, this is something that is a constant work. It will never completely go away, but as long as you keep working, as long as you keep reminding yourself, that's the way to deal with it.
I also do want to chime in that should you make it through the application process, our application process can be a little bit rigorous because, just to answer some of the questions that are coming in, we see an average of about 300 applicants per cycle. And as you can imagine, last cohort, we only had 72 spots. This cohort, we're going to be expanding to 96. But, I think the amount of people who are applying for this program just shows kind of the need for our program. But at the end of the day, if you are able to get into this program, chances are, like Beatrice and Denise said, you do belong here. But not gonna lie, with the industry that you're entering into, imposter syndrome will creep up. But keep in mind that we do have a lot of support structures in place to make sure that you can be successful. And so when that feeling does start to creep up, I'd say, put it back in its place. um, one person is asking any examples of some personal projects that you all have worked on, whether that's before Ada or while you were at Ada. If you could share some things that you've done that were helpful to applying, or even just something that helped come from your interest in programming.
Yeah, I can share. As I said, I was lucky to get into the Stanford program. The program basically covered the same things that Ada Build covers, nothing more, just the basics. But the idea was that at the end of this course, you can make whatever capstone project you like. And you can choose whatever you want. And I've chosen to work with graphic user interface and Python, which we've never learned in this course. And I did a small, very simple game, like a puzzle game, but it was really, really fun. And, having something that your kids can play added certain, it's reassured me that you can do something. You can go literally from zero to hero. But that could be whatever you want. That shouldn't be something something, I don't know, new social media or video conference platform or something that will change the world. It could be something simple, something small, but something that will help you to celebrate your achievements and celebrate your feeling of breaking through. That will definitely help you.
I'd also like to add that if, oh, sorry, I'm sorry. I
No,
thought you were
I
done.
finished.
Oh, sorry. I'd also like to add that, as you're doing like the Udemy courses, a lot of them will have an opportunity to walk you through setting up a GitHub account. So I would just recommend saving all of those small little end of chapter projects, save them all. And then you should have an opportunity to submit that portfolio with your application. Some of them may feel really small, or you may think this isn't important or impressive, but you're demonstrating that you've done small projects and you're demonstrating that you've been practicing. So even if you're not incredibly proud of it, or it could be better, because it probably could be better, especially, we're all beginners here. So I would just make sure you're saving all those little projects that you're doing.
Yeah, messing around counts. Even if you spend a whole afternoon messing around with code and at the end of it, you don't really have anything finished, you still got that experience. Most of my previous coding before Ada was, just messing around, and I started a bunch of things and didn't finish them, and that's totally okay. One thing I did finish was a relative wanted me to make a website for them, and it took me a really long time, and it wasn't too visually impressive, but I did make them a little website for their small business that they still use. I could make a much better one now, but I did it at the time, and that was something that confirmed my, ability and interest in programming.
Yeah, for me, I did a few small projects, like Allison said, as practice for um, pieces of languages that I was trying to learn. I also had um, a, a website that I built for myself. It was not fully built, like I used an existing platform, but I built the interface of it for me, that I used to add, like when I worked as a journalist, I would add my articles to this website. So this was a project that I digged in, found out how to build the user interface. Some things worked perfectly, some things did not. But even to this day, even after finishing my capstone project, I can say that you will always feel like it could be better. It always can be better. So this advice of save your work, show what you've been doing. Don't be ashamed of it is very precious, because it can always be better. You never reach a point where hey, I mastered everything. You're always learning. You're always improving your projects.
Thank you all. So it looks like there's a couple of questions around tips for reapplicants. Natalia, you did mention that you were a second-time reapplicant. And what do you think made the difference for you to be accepted on the second attempt? And what did you change on your application?
Yes, so the first time I applied for cohort 14, I went through all steps of the application process. So I've been there, but I've been rejected at the end of the day. Honestly, I was very sad. Honestly, I was depressed at some point. And at some point, I was really waiting, should I do it once again? Or should I just quit and choose some other option? So before reapplying, I was really revising everything I did. I knew that I could be better in the programming part, in the coding challenge part. So I digged into this a little bit deeper. So I tried to do the same thing I've done before for the first time, but in different way, to do it better, to work on mistakes. Ada doesn't give you any feedback, right? So you don't know why you haven't been accepted. So that's like searching in the dark room. You go one way, you go other way, but you don't have any checkpoints to understand what you've done right, what you've done wrong. The main thing to understand that if something doesn't work this way, you have to try to do it different way. So from my own experience, I think, and I think I already told about that, I think that my stories, maybe it wasn't clear from my stories that so Ada states that they want to see grit, that they want to see perseverance, that they want to see you going through challenges. I tried to adjust my narrative the second time I applied to Ada. I was really trying to work hard on narrative essays. That's what I did different for the second time.
Awesome. Thank you for providing that tip. And so there's a couple questions around what does online learning look like at Ada? So C14, maybe you can talk about your day-to-day, and C15, you can just talk about your onboarding experience if you would like to shed some light around that. But yeah, what does a remote program look like with Ada?
Oh, yeah, we unmuted at the same time. I can do the day-to-day. So we had something called core hours, which were 9:30 to 3:30, at least for our cohort. And that meant that, any scheduled Zoom obligations were between 9:30 a.m. and 3:30 p.m. And outside of that, anything that was scheduled outside of that would be announced, quite a few weeks in advance. So a typical day was, usually you would have either a all class discussion or a roundtable sometime in the morning. And that was usually either something that was being introduced to you or something that you had already been working on. Online learning, we do something called a flipped classroom, which would mean that you do the lessons first, usually readings or videos, and then you get together to talk about it and get any questions resolved. So this is probably the biggest thing I realized about Ada when I got in, was that there weren't big, long 6-hour stretches of sitting in a Zoom call and listening to a lecture, which I was really, really happy about. You basically digest the material on your own time, and then you get together and maybe, do an exercise or have a discussion. And then you have some time to work on your own. And if it's a group project week, then you might get together and, work with your partner and pair program for a while. But yeah, you're pretty much, just hopping in and out of Zoom meetings, and outside of the Zoom meetings that have been scheduled, it's pretty much, up to you to decide when you want to work and, what learning style will work best for you. And as long as you keep up with the readings and get the assignments done, then, you pretty much have a lot of flexibility, which was something that I really enjoyed.
I can speak towards the just online onboarding process as well. Yeah, they're just setting the tone so far for those online interactions. A big question I had going into this was like, are we going to be able to build that community online as well. And I would just say that we have been able to do that. I'm sure that some of you are curious about that. And setting like individual Zoom chats with colleagues, etc. But then for the onboarding, we also used an online platform to complete our pre-work. And it was, as Beatrice was saying, I'm just digesting the material and doing the exercise, and then going to the Slack channel whenever you have any questions. I've also been utilizing the online office hours, which have been really helpful as well, because you can just, make your coffee, sit down at the table, plop into somebody's office hours and get help whenever you need.
I think Beatrice covered, I think, what I wanted to say. She had the same experience as mine. I also enjoy the flexibility. And I think even though the classes will probably be online for some of you full time, not sure about the in-person, if there will be an opportunity for in-person classes. Um, you feel supported, and you have ways to reach out, in addition to all the material on the class portions, the discussions with the students or your classroom, or small groups for roundtables. You have support from the instructors through the office hours, like Allison mentioned, and you can always try Slack to reach out for help if it's outside the office hours. Someone will always reach back to you to try and find a solution or discuss the subject or issue that you're facing at the moment.
So during the internship portion, you are paid a stipend, but for the classroom portion, you are not. So how did you prepare financially for the classroom portion of the classroom portion of the program for C14? And for C15, I guess if you can also talk to how you're kind of preparing financially now for the next 6 months where you won't be getting any income.
I mentioned earlier that my most recent position was director of food and beverage for a hotel. I was in a fortunate position to be making more than what I really needed, so I was able to save up a nice little nest egg. But, and again, I'm sure a lot of you are in a similar situation. I was laid off about a year ago due to COVID, which has, actually been a really positive thing for me. It's led me here. So, I've been in an interesting financial position for the last year. I think everyone is really going to be in your own unique position. But the best thing you can do is, save what you can. And I'm sure a lot of you are also familiar with the loan program and the loan partnerships that ADA has as well. And I know a lot of folks in our cohort are taking advantage of that. There have also been a lot of questions, within our cohort about, can I have a job, etc. And it's not having started the program, and somebody who, I've worked really hard in the restaurant industry, I still don't feel comfortable taking a job in addition to ADA. So everyone's financial position is definitely different, but there is the loan option available for those who have not been able to save.
I was fortunate to count with the support of my partner for this period of time, in addition to preparation before. Not a super comfy situation, but it was enough for me to go through the program. Also, pandemic, COVID situation didn't allow me, as well as the classes, the dedication that you do to the program didn't allow me to do anything like um, that would be an extra expense. What I would say is that by being at ADA, being an ADA student, I don't think it is possible to keep a job along with the course. The dedication is intense, and you will need to dedicate yourself. So there's the loan, as Allison mentioned, and this is an option for you if you need this kind of support. And other than that, like if you find yourself in a position where you cannot attend classes because you cannot um, resign of your current position, this is something I think you have to think through and discuss with maybe reach out to someone at ADA to get more information on the loan and the possibilities, because it's not, I don't think it's possible to conciliate a job with ADA.
I guess along those lines, Beatrice or Denise, about how many hours would you say you dedicated to ADA on a weekly basis, like outside of the Monday, Friday core hours?
That's a good question. It definitely varied week to week, and I wouldn't say that I was keeping track, but I would say that probably about a minimum of 30 hours a week. And it might be tempting to take that answer and be like, oh yeah, no, that's enough time. I could work part-time. But it's really just about, all of the new material that you're intaking, and the scheduling needs of the program. And I couldn't see myself doing, there were points in ADA that got really, really busy with company presentations and interview prep and a group project all at the same time. And I just could not imagine myself having like really too many other obligations, certainly not work on top of that. So, oh, and one other thing on the financial subject, I was also fortunate to have savings, but the loans are also a great option. But something that um, is good to account for in your financial planning is that you will have no income when in ADA. And so if you're in the state of Washington is extremely generous with, food stamps and, Medicaid, and definitely take advantage of all the benefit programs that you can, because as soon as you have no income, then you are eligible for pretty much all of those.
Yes, thanks for that tip, Beatrice. That's a good one. And so there's a question here that's asking, what the quote unquote in-person or virtual interview was like, the final interview, and if you have any tips on how to best prepare for that.
I have one tip, and this is for the technical interview. Well, for the technical interview, I suggest you practice explaining your code to everybody that's around you. Even if the person don't know much about code, just explain what your thinking process was, what you wanted to do. Practice like trying to explain it to someone that doesn't understand. I think it's actually even better, because you'll be able to put your thinking process into simple words. Other than that, just stay calm. Remember that the person that's interviewing you wants you to succeed. They're not against you. They want you to become an AD. They want you to pass. And this is for the technical one. I'll let the other participants talk about the other interviews.
For my final interview, something that was really helpful for me, and also just the entire application process, was I just really like reflected on the why, like why do I want to do this? And it's not just about like, okay, I have to convince these people I want this, but like it's really important to think about why do I want to do this? And practice saying that out loud. I had my wife ask me like some questions that I thought I might get. And I just practiced answering those out loud, and it helps um, to just practice saying them and breathing through it. And then getting feedback like, hey, you didn't mention this really awesome thing about you, or like, hey, you didn't say how you got there. I think the best thing you can do for any phase is, practice and get feedback from people who you trust and people who care about you and want to see you succeed.
Yeah, I was fortunate to have real interviews before applying to AIDA because I was looking for a job. So this was very important for me to go out of your comfort zone and talk to people you have never met before, and talking about yourself. That was very, very important. And as Alison said, the way you define your goal, I would say that would be the main support for you to go through the application process. You have to know why you're doing that, not for interviewing people, for yourself. You have to know why you need that, and that will help you go through. And with the technical interview, when I submitted the program and pushed the button submit, I was sitting and thinking, oh, I can do this better. I probably can do this in a different way. So I would suggest write every thought you have, every idea came to your mind after you submitted the program, and talk about that during your interview, technical interview. That might help you too.
One quick thing is just sell yourself, and don't sell yourself short either. People that are applying to this program have often been conditioned to minimize their accomplishments and think that, they're not that special. But chances are you've achieved, amazing things in your life. And it's really just a matter of phrasing it and being able to first believing it yourself that you have done amazing things, and then being able to explain to someone, on the spot, perhaps, why you did this awesome thing and maybe what you learned from it. And yeah, it doesn't have to be, something amazing that changed the world, but just something that you did for yourself, or something that you did for, one of your workplaces or your community.
So is there anything about ADA that you wish you knew or prepared for before you had applied? And we're kind of reaching the end of our time here. So if you want to answer that question and also provide some last minute encouragement for our attendees, feel free to kind of throw that in as well.
I'm not sure. I think this is a good question, but also a difficult one to answer for me at least. I'm not really sure if there's something that I wish I knew before, but I can definitely say that if I had more time, I would use it to prepare myself. This is what I like, not a thing that I wish I knew, just a thing that I wish I started earlier than I did, even though I started in a reasonable time to prepare myself before applying.
I would say that I wish I knew I was ready, because I was ready. to apply. I think there was a lot of hesitation, there was a lot of self-doubt, and this is going to play into, you know, a lot of questions that we've heard tonight about imposter syndrome, etc. I actually delayed my application a cycle because I was like, I don't think I'm ready. I don't think I can do this. When in fact I was ready. So I'd say if you're having any hesitation or doubt or questioning if you're ready, you know, the reality is if you feel like this is a good fit for you, go ahead, do the build curriculum, and that is really going to tell you a lot. It's going to give you a lot of information. But that's one thing that I wish I knew. I wish I had had the confidence to go for it. And I wish I had known earlier that I was ready for this. You're ready for this.
Yeah. That's pretty much where I'm at too. I'm trying to think of anything I wish I'd known about the program itself, and I feel like it is pretty forthcoming with information through events like this and through their website, and you can definitely email them if you have any questions. But I also delayed my application. I just put it off too long and just kind of freaked out, you know, about a week before it was supposed to be due, and it's fine. I got in next time, but yeah, just seconding that you're ready.
I wish I knew before applying to ADA that there is the huge community of people that already graduated from ADA, that there is a, so I haven't been aware of the Reddit channel. So I didn't use personal connections to help me to get more about ADA. I realized it too late, I would say. So just imagine how many people have already gone through this, and most of these people are willing to help, are willing to give back. So what I would suggest, I think it would be a good idea to reach to those people through different channels we have, and to reach, talk, to gather the information. I wish I've done this better, this homework better. I think that would be more helpful to me. So find this Reddit channel. I know that it's not official Reddit channel, right, Jane? So it's but it is so supportive. It's great. It's great to dive deep into the ADA life and find almost any answer to your questions.